Selena Gomez and her mom today are facing accusations of fraud over their mental health company, Wondermind.
It just stemmed from us really wanting to help other mom and daughters.
All you're doing to lift the burden off of people who have problems with their mental health.
Freelancers and vendors are owed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of dollars.
Now she wants to use her platform to help others with their mental fitness, launching a new multimedia company focused on mental health.
Accusing the defendants of multiple counts of fraud and breach of contract.
Selena Gomez and her mother Mandy Teefey are being sued in federal court for fraud after investors accused them of essentially selling a fantasy to secure funding for their mental health startup Wondermind, while the company was allegedly quietly falling apart behind closed doors. And when I say fantasy, I mean investors claim that they were promised the whole package. Selena Gomez would heavily be involved in marketing, major corporate partnerships were supposedly happening, revenue-generating initiatives were allegedly already underway, and at the center of this entire mental health empire was supposed to be an app. There was just one little problem. According to the lawsuit, the partnerships did not exist, the initiatives never materialized, the app was never built. And apparently that wasn't even the worst of it, because while investors poured $1.2 million into Wondermind, they alleged that nobody bothered to tell them that behind the glossy celebrity photo shoots, inspirational mental health messaging, and Selena Gomez name recognition, the company was descending into complete chaos. According to investors, they only found out that the company was falling apart when The Cut released an entire expose revealing what former Wondermind employees said was happening behind closed doors. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Scandalous Media, it's Alana here. A few months ago, we did an entire video about The Cut's expose, What Happened at Wondermind, where we broke down everything that went wrong with the company from start to finish, and it was a scathing piece. The Cut spoke to several former Wondermind employees who had a lot to say about Mandy, Selena, and what was allegedly happening behind the scenes. This article was how investors at Wondermind figured out something was wrong, so let's do a quick recap of what we originally exposed in the first video. Wondermind is a mental health and mental fitness company co-founded by Selena, her mother Mandy Teefey, and entrepreneur Daniella Pierson in 2021. The idea was to create a platform that would make conversations around mental health more accessible through articles, podcasts, expert-backed resources, celebrity content, and eventually an app. Basically, they wanted Wondermind to be a one-stop destination for mental wellness, using Selena's massive platform and her own history of speaking publicly about mental health to help build the brand. Employees told The Cut that Mandy would sometimes disappear for days or even weeks at a time, have unpredictable angry outbursts, and go through periods where she practically lived inside the Wondermind office, sometimes staying there for days without showering or even changing her clothes. Staffers described walking past her glass office in the middle of the workday and seeing her watch Schitt's Creek for hours, surrounded by takeout containers that allegedly accumulated to the point of attracting flies, while another room was reportedly filling up with tens of thousands of dollars worth of designer purchases. But employees alleged that things got even darker than that. Several staffers told The Cut that they believed Mandy sometimes appeared intoxicated at work, with one employee even alleging that they witnessed her snort what they believed was Ritalin. Nurses were also reportedly regularly coming into the office to administer IV treatments, including liquid Benadryl, after which employees claimed Mandy sometimes appeared drowsy and spoke slowly. Mandy has denied the drug allegations, including the claim that she snorted Ritalin, and accused former employees of being disgruntled and spreading lies.
I don't buy it.
And then there was Selena herself, because according to former Wondermind employees, while Selena's name gave this company an enormous amount of credibility, getting Selena to actually promote the company she co-founded was apparently like pulling teeth. Staffers told The Cut that Selena rarely visited the Wondermind office, rarely mentioned the company publicly, and even getting a simple social media post out of her could allegedly require repeatedly chasing down her team. One former employee literally described it as, "It was like pulling teeth. We'd have to call her publicist 4 times." Which is crazy when you remember that Selena's celebrity was one of the biggest assets this company had. Selena had absolutely no problem attaching herself to Wondermind when it launched. Her face was in the press, her personal mental health journey was intertwined with its mission. She was one of its 3 celebrity founders. The entire reason Wondermind received this level of attention in the first place was because Selena Gomez was attached to it. Once you look behind the Selena branding, she was barely there. One staffer went as far as saying they believed Wondermind was essentially a way for Selena to keep Mandy out of her orbit. And that's particularly interesting now because this new federal lawsuit alleges that when investors were being asked to put their money into Wondermind, Selena wasn't presented as some distant celebrity who occasionally lent her name to the company. She was allegedly touted as a major part of Wondermind's marketing strategy. So let me get this straight. When you're raising money, having Selena Gomez attached to your mental health startup is apparently important enough to help sell investors on its potential, but according to the people actually working there, when it came to get Selena to promote that same company, they were calling her publicist 4 times trying to get a post. It almost feels like the problem could have been avoided if Selena actually cared about putting work into her mental health company the way she prances about doing it for Rare Beauty. Employees claimed that Selena wasn't oblivious to what was happening either. Staffers recalled Selena coming into the office during periods where Mandy had allegedly been practically living there, and one employee remembered Selena looking at her mother and asking, "How long have you been here? Have you gone home?" And that is why some former employees were extremely critical of Selena after Wondermind began collapsing. One staffer told The Cut that Mandy was culpable for what happened, but Selena, in my opinion, is just as culpable. Another put it even more harshly, there will always be people who are dangerously unstable. What's worse is somebody like Selena who sees it firsthand and doesn't do anything. And now investors are coming forward alleging that Selena's involvement was part of the picture they were sold when they handed Wondermind $1.2 million. So this is no longer just a question of whether Selena was a co-founder who couldn't be bothered to post on Instagram, but rather someone who aided in failing to pay her employees on time simply because she couldn't be bothered to do anything for Wondermind. And now let's get to what the investors had to say about why they're suing Wondermind, Selena, Mandy, and former business partner / co-CEO Daniella Pierson. According to TMZ, the companies claim Selena and her mom made false representations about the infrastructure, leadership, and resources necessary for the company to launch into a profitable platform, all to get investments from them. The companies say they invested over $1 million based on Selena making the rounds on TV shows and speaking in interviews about the business. The companies claim for 3 years, while the company quietly collapsed around them, not one of its founders, officers, or directors said a word to the investors whose money was funding the collapse. The lawsuit alleges that the investors did not learn about Wondermind's issues until The Cut published an expose in September 2025, which described the company as being in a state of utter disarray. Now, let me remind you guys that Mandy wasn't even going through with half the projects needed to make Wondermind stable. It was not like Mandy and Selena had all these great ideas and they lacked funding for them. No, according to employees, Mandy would pick up new projects and drop them all the time. To get her to even review some notes for a project could take up to a year. She was missing Zoom calls, repeatedly canceling meetings, delaying conversations for months or even a whole year, and she started coming into work less and less, often being completely unreachable. Mandy would disappear for weeks, one staffer says. She wouldn't respond at all. This type of leadership, if you can even call it that, started to affect people's livelihoods. Employees were left investing their energy, time, and trusting the vision, only for the company to reach a point where it couldn't even pay them, ultimately leading to layoffs. Mandy can be as delusional as her daughter, who would go into rages telling employees, "I'm carrying the entire company. If the company went down, me and Selena will be fine, but none of you will be fine. I'm doing this to make sure you all have jobs."
Oh.
I guess there really is some justice in the world, because when the company did go down, Mandy and Selena were at the center of a lawsuit. What I find really weird about Wondermind and Mandy is that after getting everyone on board by marketing Selena as the center of the company, Mandy tried to tell the employees that it wasn't going to revolve around her at all. This is not Selena's site, she stressed, employees say. When the editorial team was designing the newsletter and website, she said, "We don't want this to be like, this is Selena's brand." From a business standpoint, this seemed counterintuitive. Gomez was a power influencer, if ever there was one, and her other company, Rare Beauty, was an enormous success. To employees, Teefey's impulse was obviously personal. She resented her public image as Selena's mom, especially now that she was no longer her daughter's manager. That's not enough for her, one staffer said. So to investors, Selena is making this an extension of her brand, but behind closed doors, Mandy is trying to market it as its own thing. So basically, the investors suing them for portraying a false role for Selena seems to be pretty accurate after all. Mandy continued to defend her personal bias against using Selena's name by arguing the company had not yet arrived at a stable enough place for her daughter's sway to be utilized at its best capacity.
What?
The employees were extremely confused as to how Mandy had a lifeline but refused to use it, even though every employee agreed that most of Wondermind's revenue came from promotion, social media promotion, aka the job Selena refused to do. So not only was the environment tense, they were not even getting paid on time, and Mandy kept all of them on the edge of their seats about which funding the company was getting and which projects were actually going to take off. According to staffers, Mandy rejected offers with companies and investors if they were only interested in Wondermind through Selena. So as you can see here, the problem was that Selena gifted Mandy a whole company, and these two just started playing with everyone's lives because of past resentment or just unsolved issues, such as Mandy using the office as her getaway from home and showing up intoxicated at work. The employees said that on rare occasions when they saw Mandy and Selena interact, their relationship seemed to be strained and uncomfortable. I could tell there's distance between the two of them, a lot of hurt. They don't interact like a typical mother and daughter. They interact like two women who put up with each other, not even two co-workers. The air was cold between them. They've had a very intense relationship. Let me know if you guys want a video just based on their relationship alone, because they went from being each other's best friends and having no one else, to going months with no contact, to reconciling, to then being cold with each other and Mandy resorting to shading Selena online, to being friendly again. I mean, it's a very odd yet typical relationship supported by the theme that Mandy was so young when she had Selena, and Selena resents having to also grow up with her mom, but at the same time she shares a deep compassion for her. Like I said, we can do a whole deep dive on these two. When the news of them getting sued was first released, Mandy and Selena posted them hanging out as a family, and in the picture you can see Selena and Gracie because nothing screams positive PR like using your 12-year-old daughter. The funny thing about Mandy is that when she was getting sued by her investors, she tried to blame the whole thing on Daniella Pierson, who had left the company by that time, and according to employees, after Daniella's leave, Mandy became less reliable. Selena's lawyers responded to the lawsuit saying that these are baseless claims that they will fight in court. Her lawyer said, allegations against Selena engaging in any fraud or other wrongdoing are completely meritless both factually and legally.
Sure, Jan.
And here's where it continues to get interesting. Selena's makeup brand, Rare Beauty, which is always affiliating itself with mental health, donates to mental health companies including the Rare Impact Fund. People started to question if one of those mental health companies was Wondermind, or if the Rare Impact Fund itself was donating to Wondermind, allowing Selena to use the charitable act as a tax write-off. A tweet read, "She's evil because she sells her makeup brand by saying the money goes for a mental health company, and the company in question is hers, so basically the money is still for her. And having a successful makeup brand, but the mental health company is falling apart, explains everything." I wouldn't put it past Selena to do something like this since she thought her brand and name were bigger than Wondermind. She never took the company seriously since the start, and according to a staffer, in June 2021, Wondermind held a team dinner in West Hollywood, and Selena showed up noticeably drunk, slurring her words, and announcing to the table that she'd be leaving shortly to go have sex. According to People magazine, sources say that Selena shouldn't get sued because once she found out about the issue, she gave her mom some money to handle things. The source said, Selena has invested millions of dollars over the years into Wondermind to support her mother and their shared passion for mental health, including when she was alerted about the most recent financial setback and immediately invested more money as she's not involved in the day-to-day operations. I do want to point out that the investors seem to be more pissed off at the fact that they found out the company was being held by toothpicks because of an article instead of the co-founders, including those who didn't come day to day, deciding to alert them that their millions were going down the drain. Also, as much as Selena and her team want to paint her as this outsider who knew nothing was going on, Wondermind staffers were actually shocked at how little Selena cared about her mom and the company and just let her suffer on her own for a while. If I had seen my mom in that state, one employee says, I would have intervened. I would say this isn't right. Teefey is culpable, the staffer says, responsible for Wondermind's failures and their fallout, but Selena, in my opinion, is just as culpable. In the past, we've spoken about Selena and her mom's estranged relationship in the deep dive we did about Selena's wedding. Selena and her mom have always had a close relationship, but that started to change once Selena hit her late teens and entered adulthood. Selena's mom used to be her manager, and they often clashed over Selena's personal and business relationships. It does make sense that Selena agreed to be on board with Wondermind to give her mom something to do, while she herself didn't care to have much involvement with the company. The only issue is that when the company needed her, she was nowhere to be found, even after she was technically the face of the company. People's livelihoods were affected, and many employees got laid off after they were sold the idea that they were part of a dream team come true. It seems like employees were not the only ones burned by Mandy and Selena, as their investors are pissed and currently suing them. Well, there you guys have it. At the end of the video I did previously for Wondermind, I asked the question saying, do you think Mandy and Selena will be able to keep the company and rebrand into something more reliable, or is Wondermind going to fizzle out? And I'm guessing by this new lawsuit and Mandy's instability to run a corporate office, Wondermind is probably going to fizzle out just like that Alka-Seltzer dupe Mandy wanted to market.